This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Hey folks, Ivan here. Just letting you know that the following episode was recorded in the year 2020 for Patreon, and it was the first time we watched it, so some things we say may be a bit out of date. We hope you enjoy it anyhow.
Hey.
Welcome to a brand new season of Curbcast. My name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And we are the voices behind But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character, a Seinfeld podcast. And this is our bonus podcast series where we talk about every episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, scene by scene. And we have done season 1, and this is the start of season 2. How exciting, my man.
Yeah, no, it's good to get back into it. We were unsure about when we were going to do this, but recently we decided to restart our Patreon because the world's basically trapped in their homes. So we thought, what a good time to restart it, to give you some extra content to listen to and keep you sane in these insane times. Yeah, so we thought that we'd restart talking about probably the most insane person on television.
And his TV show, of course. So
that's right.
So the season 2 premiere episode's called The Car Salesman, first aired in the United States on the 23rd of September 2001. Larry spends a day as a car salesman and is ready to give up many things to stay a car salesman. He also buys a house and everything seems to be going fine, except that people keep asking him stupid questions while they're car shopping, and the house makes weird sounds at night. So Larry puts his genius into action and is this close to fulfilling a lifelong dream when Richard Lewis shows up with grievances and ruins everything. And what a weird fantasy for Larry. He always wanted to be a car salesman, particularly a Toyota car salesman.
Yeah, look, I don't think he cared about what brand of car he sold. I think he just wanted to sell cars. And, you know, he's like, well, I've got nothing better to do. And the owner or the manager of the car yard comes up and runs into him at lunch. It's just sort of like the opportunity just presents itself and he jumps on board.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a really crazy fantasy. But he doesn't do well on the first day, but on the second day, he almost gets that sale, but it doesn't work out.
Yeah, no, he's pretty horrible on the first day and he's quite rude to a lot of people. My favorite is when he, we'll talk about the scene more in depth later on, but just off the top of my head, my favorite is when the guy goes, so there's a GTS and a GT. What's the difference? And Larry goes, well, one stands for generally tremendous safety, and the other one, and the guy's like, so the other guy's just generally tremendous, and Larry just doesn't even have any response. He's just like, oh,
I fucked this one up.
Yeah, but yeah, he reflects on his first day and comes back, and he's more of a salesman. He's he almost locks in that sale until Richard comes along.
Until Richard screws it up for him. Yeah. And speaking of Richard and other supporting characters, Richard Lewis appears again as himself. Jason Alexander makes his debut on the show. He plays himself.
Yeah, no, really good. Obviously references Seinfeld a lot, but yeah, having Jason is a really good way to start the season off. I mean, Julia appeared last season.
That's right.
So yeah, having Jason, I think, was a really good idea to start the season.
Absolutely. And other characters are Tom Clark, the car salesman. He's played by Rick Hall. Jay Schneider, who Larry buys the house from, he's played by Matt North. His wife, Barbara, is played by Jan Chin. And the worker who tries to find the house sound at the end of the episode, he's played by Jim Zulovich. Nice. The car salesman starts with Larry lazing around in his hotel room eating chips and cookies while watching Maury on TV, as we mentioned off air. It's revealed in a later scene that they sold the house because of the wire from season 1 at Cheryl's request, of course, because that wire really bugged her.
Yeah, no, it did. They were trying to put it underground, but yeah, bugged her enough to sell the house.
Yes. Cheryl walks in and accosts Larry for lazing around all day, asking if this is what he's going to do now he's in retirement. She says that they have a house inspection to go to and asks Larry to get ready quickly. And I love when Larry gets up and he imitates the contestant or the person on Maury. Like he impersonates like a typical Maury. Yeah, because Maury's that show about, it's kind of like Jerry Springer, but it has like lots of paternity tests and, has like real wild, loose people, women and men and stuff going on saying, look at me, bitch. It's like white trash people. And he imitates one of the white trash. It's so good.
Yeah. No, he does a good job.
Look at me, bitch.
I also like how Cheryl's like, have you gotten up once today? And Larry's like, I got up to tip the maid.
Tip the maid.
Like that's his version of being productive and not being a lazy slob for the day.
But he feels like he seems to be in real absolute bliss, doesn't he?
Yeah,
safe space. He's just content.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really, Cheryl says like now that you're retired or something, but they haven't really officially said that he's retired. So maybe, between season 1 and 2 is like, you know what, I'm done. Like how old is he? 50, 52, something like that. He's made squillions of dollars off Seinfeld, that the money will keep coming in. I don't want to work anymore. I'm good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, his version of retirement is a bit more low key than a lot of other people's. You know, I don't think he wants to move to Florida and play shuffleboard. I think he just wants to get fat and eat chips and watch Maury or other terrible TV shows. So, you know, I respect him. He's living his dream.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Good on him. And or stay skinny and, you know, because he's got a high metabolism.
That's true. And I figure, you know, if he's happy to stay inside and watch trash TV, that means there's less of a chance for him to go outside and upset other people. So exactly. For me, it's a win-win.
But then there'd be no show.
That's true. It's true. I reckon you could make a show of Larry just like, you know, what's that show, Gogglebox? You know, where it's just people watching TV and you're watching them watch TV.
Yes.
And, you know, it's a terrible concept for a show and the show sucks. But, you know, I'd happily watch Larry David comment on and sort of narrate TV shows as watching them. I reckon it'd be pretty funny.
Or he can, you know, be like Bernie Sanders, just impersonate him. Pretend it's Bernie Sanders criticizing him.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders in bed with Bernie.
In bed with Bernie. Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah. Nice. More than a weekend. Every day.
Hopefully for the next 4 years. Well, actually, I think Joe Biden, he looks like he's coming up, so it's probably going to be him and Trump.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Larry and Cheryl are admiring the outside of the house, and Larry claims that the house is too big. The agent turns up to bring them in, and they're greeted by one of the owners, Barbara. They're in awe of the ocean view on the terrace, and I love this. Larry jokingly asks if he can shoot whales from the balcony.
Because he eats blubber for breakfast.
Blubber for breakfast, and Barbara, you know, like, it's funny how Barbara thinks he's serious. He's just like,
yeah,
he's serious.
Yeah, and Cheryl and the agent have to like say, you know, just ignore him. He's just joking.
Just being silly. Barbara's husband Jay walks in and reminds Larry of when they first met during the production of Seinfeld. He tells Larry that he's signed Jason Alexander for representation. Cheryl tries to convince Larry to catch up with Jason, and Jay tells him that he'll organise a meeting for them both. Larry asks him if his sweater is 100% cashmere. Nice reference to the red dot from Seinfeld, the cashmere.
Yeah.
I noticed that. Did you notice that too? You were like, cashmere.
No, I didn't notice that reference, but it makes perfect sense because obviously George is the one who buys the sweater. You know, Jason's in this episode, so it's a good tie-in.
And in both shows, cashmere is a highly prized garment, a highly prized fabric.
That's true.
Yes. And Larry questions his honesty as he may buy the house from him because Jay doesn't answer if it's 100% cashmere or not. You know, so that that failure to answer basically for Larry, he thinks, oh, geez, if he's lying about cashmere, what if he lies about the house?
Yeah. He distrusts him because he doesn't believe his. What does he describe it as? Cashmere content. Why would you lie about the cashmere content?
Why would you lie about the cashmere content? I know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's classic like Larry David where, you know, he's interacting with two or more people and they're having their conversation about what's actually relevant and important. They're discussing the house and he's just in his own little world, like sort of like interrupting them and rambling about something inane and ridiculous. And they're like, who cares? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're purchasing a house and you care about a cashmere sweater? Like, it's just classic Larry David.
Classic Larry indeed. Outside of the house, Larry's complaining to Cheryl about not being able to trust Jay, as mentioned before, and buy the house. Cheryl encourages him to work with Jason again, but Larry says he doesn't want to do TV work anymore. And that came back to your theory from the first scene where Larry's like, I don't want to do any work anymore. I'm in my 50s. I'm making squillions from Seinfeld, and I don't want to do TV.
Yeah, but I think he realizes that he needs to at least show that he's not going to be a lazy slob just to appease his wife.
Exactly. Yeah, he wants to show that he's at least doing something.
Yeah, I mean, he's not one to sort of comply with, you know, politeness and social norms, but I think he does realize that he does have to give a bit to keep his wife and those around him happy, even if it's just sort of an empty gesture.
Yeah, absolutely. To make it more for them rather than him.
Yeah, and probably just to, you know, just to minimize the amount of tension in his life or, you know, negativity in his life.
That's it. Well, Larry and Jeff the next day are at a restaurant where Jeff reveals that he may sign Richard Lewis, and he asks Larry if Richard is high maintenance, and Larry says, he's okay. Jeff's friend Tom walks past and greets them as he takes a seat. Larry's happy when he realizes that Tom is a Toyota salesman, and he claims that he's always wanted to be a salesman and that he has the ability to do it. Tom reluctantly offers him a job at Larry's request for a couple of days starting Monday, and Jeff is very bemused. Jeff's like, you being a car salesman? Like, what? Really? A millionaire writer, the co-creator of freaking Seinfeld? You want to be a Toyota salesman?
Well, he doesn't know who he is at first.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm saying that's what
Jeff has to say, like, this is Larry David, the creator of Seinfeld. But I love Larry's, you know, he's like trying to give him, like, talk himself up, and he's like, I can manipulate anyone into anything except women into having sex with me.
Good line. Yeah. He said that. And sorry, what was the car salesman's name again?
Tom. immediately he's a bit offended. He's like, hang on, no, like salesmen, we don't have a bullshit job. Like he genuinely believes that car salesmen are like honest, despite the stereotype. Larry's just like, no, I'd be a good salesman because I can manipulate anyone into anything.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good.
And then Larry's like, I'll sell more cars. I'll sell the most cars on the day. And then Tom's like, you won't sell on your first day. He keeps saying, you won't sell. You won't sell. No one ever sells on their first day.
I think he only gave him a shot just to sort of appease Jeff and not to embarrass him. And I don't think he actually is convinced at all.
And probably knowing that he's Larry David, when he finds out he's the Seinfeld co-creator, he's probably like, oh, having someone like him in my shop, that might help. Yeah,
it might attract some extra customers. And maybe he thinks that, even if he's a terrible salesman and even if he knows what Larry David's like and that he's not very good at being social and being nice, maybe he thinks that people will buy a car just to say that they brought it off Larry David. Maybe he thinks that his cachet will be enough to get some sales across the line.
Maybe.
Who knows? The next scene, it moves to
this is probably my favorite scene in the episode.
Yeah.
Cheryl's at the dining table in the hotel as Larry walks in the door. She says that they can move house on Monday, and Larry says, and she's like, oh, so that means you'd be free on Monday because you got nothing to do. And then Larry says, no, actually, I have a car sales job to do on Monday. And Cheryl's like, what? He's serious? She can't believe what he's saying. And Larry says it'll come straight to the new house after work and help put up pictures. Because Cheryl's like, you're retired. You're just watching Maury while you're eating chips and cookies, and now you've got something. And at first Cheryl's thinking, oh, you're working with Jason, or you're going to do like a TV, like a project or something. That's fantastic.
Yeah, she goes, oh, did you call Jason?
Yeah,
he goes, no, good at cars. I'm selling cars.
And then she's like, what? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then I love how he's got all the brochures of each model, and he's like, I got to study all these. Prius, what's this one? Rave, a Rave something. I think that's how you say it.
Rave. I was personally offended by that because I've got a RAV4.
You have a
RAV4
like, it's
RAV4.
Well. Yeah, it's like a Rave something. I don't know.
Rave.
Yeah, Corolla. Look at all this. I know. I love it. It's my favorite scene in the episode. Cheryl's like, you have sunk to a new low.
Yeah, and I love how he goes, just let me do it for a couple of days. Just let me get it out of my system.
It just makes me laugh thinking back on that.
Yeah, no, it is a good scene.
Yeah.
Then it moves on to Larry going to meet Jason, which is awesome. And Jason's on the phone. Larry comes in and they start their meeting. And Larry goes, how you doing? What's going on? And immediately Jason's sort of like being honest, is saying that he can't really shake the George Costanza character, and that every time he auditions for a role, everyone wants him to be George Costanza. And he's obviously very frustrated because Jason, in real life, he's a great actor. He's played many roles and he's a really good theater actor. And a highly respected theater actor. And maybe this is some of the, this is 2 years after Seinfeld. Maybe this is what I'm sure Jason had to go through in real life. He had to get some distance between him and the end of Seinfeld to sort of really spread his wings and show other people that he's not, he is more than George Costanza.
And that's the thing. I mean, when you have like a massive role like that on a massive TV show or a massive film, and that role defines you and your career, it's so hard to break out of.
Yeah, I think the only time that, there are some actors who, have a really defining role, but they had previously defining roles. So they've got a history of showing diversity. But I think, Jason Alexander wasn't an unaccomplished actor before Seinfeld, but it really, really put him on the map. If he had, in the 80s, if he had a really equally popular role, I don't think it would be as much trouble because people would be like, well, that's George Costanza and, some other person. But I think it's because it was his first defining role that kind of, it sort of cements you into that. And I can imagine how it would be frustrating. And I think Jason does a really good job in this scene of, sort of opening up. And I think he feels like if I can open up to anyone, it's Larry because, he was my mentor. He was the show creator. He would understand,
he was the inspiration
what I'm going through.
George.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's funny when George, says, oh, this character, George, he was such a klutz. He was a yutz, a schmuck, an idiot and all that stuff. I love how Larry vehemently defends George, the character. He's like, no, he's none of those things. What are you talking about? Yeah. And he's like, no, he's like the jackass. If people keep calling him jackass and Costanza and stuff, and Larry's like, no, George isn't a jackass, even though he clearly is.
Yeah, no, he's trying to defend the shitty qualities. I think Larry, feels a bit insulted because he's like, well, hang on, you played a character that is very much based on me. Are you calling me those things?
Me and Woody Allen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And later on, they both come up with a TV show concept about Jason being in this exact situation. So it's like meta. It's like a show within a show within a show. In a semi-fictionalized setting, much like Seinfeld was for Jerry. Jason likes the idea, and like everyone else who finds out, is bemused about Larry being a car salesman for a few days, because Larry tells Jason about it, and Jason's like, oh, good, you got a job, you got some work. As in, when you're in that industry and you say you got work, people think, oh, you got a film or a TV show, or you got like a pitch or something. But it's like, no, I'm actually being a car salesman. And Jason's like, what? Huh? Just like everyone else in the episode.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an understandable reaction. I mean, if you've made a shitload of money off TV, I can understand why people would be surprised at you going, well, I'm just going to go back and work a, quote unquote regular job that, doesn't pay anywhere near as much. I can understand why people would be amused and also confused.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know. That'd just be weird. It'd be like if one day Jerry Seinfeld said, that's right, I'm quitting stand-up comedy, I'm going to be a real estate agent.
Yeah, I'm going to go be a delivery driver or something.
Yeah, that's it, Uber Eats. Well, in this economy and with what's going on in the world, you never know, mate. You never know.
True.
You might see a famous person delivering your next meal. The next day, Larry wakes up very early to head to work, and he kisses Cheryl goodbye. He's chatting to Tom in his office for a briefing before he starts his shift, and what follows is a montage of Larry trying to get various customers to buy a car, despite not having any answers for their specific questions. And I love also when Larry claims that each customer's name is something like a middle name, or his wife's name, or his cat's middle name, or something. It's just like, he's like, oh, Ethel, that's my cat's name, or he's
Doris, just trying
that's
to
my grandmother's name. It's like,
he's just trying to relate to them just by lying through his teeth. It's hilarious.
And as we know, each sale falls through, and Larry tries the I wrote Seinfeld line to the final customer, but it falls through again. It doesn't work.
She doesn't believe him, and she just sort of looks at him and walks off.
Yeah, because that scene's essentially just like montages, a montage of sales.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the only way you could deliver that scene, unless there was like a really good, long, awkward. I could imagine either a montage or, like a long, awkward back and forth with one person that lasts, 5 minutes or 6 minutes. But I think a montage was the right choice to show, like, just under any circumstance, regardless of who comes in, he cooks it.
For sure. I know he does. He just screws it up, and obviously while it is his fantasy, he doesn't quite have the chops to sell cars.
No. After his miserable day, Larry heads back to the new house, and Cheryl asks him how it went. And, he's trying to, I think he knows that he was terrible at it, but he's trying to stay upbeat. He's like, I've got to go back in there, and sometimes a sale takes more than a day. And, he's trying to stay positive and keep it sort of active in his head, even though Cheryl very obviously wants him to give it up. She's like, okay, have you got it out of your system now?
That's it. I know, but he's like, no, I got to keep doing it. But later in bed, Larry hears a weird sound, and he goes to investigate, and it's a house sound, and it reinforces the idea that Jay can't be trusted after not being told of the sound, and he goes to check on the noise. He doesn't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, I love how Cheryl's like, it's a house sound, it could be the plumbing. And I understand Larry's frustration with her being vague in that, because like I've had circumstances in my life where there's been a sound that can't really be explained, and people are like, oh, it's probably the house, and it's like, what does that actually mean? Like, you can't just say, oh, it's the house. Like, what? It's got to come from somewhere. Like, a house doesn't just randomly make noises. So I understand when he's like, when she's like, it's a house sound, he's like, what's a house sound? I was just like, yes, I get it. Like, because you can't just say, oh, it's just an old house and it makes noises. I'm like, no, that's too vague.
It's got to come from something.
Like, I understand that old houses might make noises, but it's not just the house. The house doesn't just generate noises out of invisible speakers. It's coming from a source.
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I mean, when he describes it as a camera whirring in like the next scene or like the next scene, I listen back and I'm like, it doesn't sound like a camera whirring.
No.
It sounds more like a creak.
Yeah.
But it's not so creaky. It's a weird sound. It sounds like something's moving, but I couldn't really put it down to anything.
It's like
it's like a slow. Something seems to be like shifting back and forth slowly.
Maybe
but it's not
walls or something.
I don't know. It's just a house sound.
Yeah, they might have had a pest problem. Who knows? And Jay never mentioned it.
Yeah, it can't be trusted.
That's it.
Maybe that's why they wanted to sell it so quick.
Maybe, who knows? Well, I guess if we were talking about secondary characters, we could probably, use that as our basis. Maybe it was the case.
Yeah, it was shifty.
That's it. And they were happy to move out as soon as possible. At Larry's second day at work, he has a potential sale from a customer, like we mentioned before. Just as he's about to go through, Richard Lewis walks into the dealership, and he can't believe what he says. He walks in and he goes, Jeff told me that you were selling cars. I thought you were pulling a prank. I thought he was kidding. I didn't think this was actually actually happening.
Yeah, he can't believe it.
It's like, is this a
And
joke?
he and you know in the middle of the sale he's like, you got to be kidding me. And Larry's like, you cost me a sale, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like he still can't believe it, even though he's there selling cars.
Exactly, yeah. He thinks, is this a prank? He's thinking, am I on candid camera or some shit?
Yeah,
Like, what
no,
is
it's
this?
weird. I can understand that though. You know why you'd think it was weird. Like what?
Yeah.
Like, why is
someone like
Larry
you,
selling cars?
a multi-millionaire selling Toyotas.
Yeah,
You know, selling
very strange.
Ferraris or Porsches or Maseratis, maybe, you know, for a laugh.
Maybe.
But geez, Toyotas.
But I could imagine buying Ferraris, maybe not selling them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you did mention that Larry's, you know, he doesn't like showing his wealth.
No, he's a pretty bread and butter sort of guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Richard's upset that Larry called him high maintenance. You know, and what does he say? He's like, you know, I've been getting my life together for 7 years, and people think I'm some sort of sex maniac.
Yeah, sex maniac, exactly. And Larry notices that Richard's actually wearing the same cashmere sweater as Jay, and like the same pattern and everything. Would you believe it? They must have bought it from the same store. And he asks if it's 100% cashmere, and Richard's like, I don't know. And then Larry, you know, he says, do you know? Is there a percentage or whatever? And then Larry goes, show me your tag. And then Richard's like, no. And they have like one of their trademark tussles.
Yeah, no, Richard actually says it is 100% cashmere, and Larry wants proof. And he's like, my word isn't good enough for you?
My word is, that's right. My word isn't good enough for you? That's right. And they have a tussle. And Tom sees this, and he fires Larry. Yeah,
I love during the tussle how, you know, Larry's trying to justify why he's like harassing and assaulting him. And he's like, I won't even touch you. I'll just touch the tag. And it's like, fuck off. Like, he's like trying to justify it as it's happening. He's like, no, like, this is okay. Yeah. I won't touch you. I'll just touch your tag. It's just so good.
And then Larry gets fired on his second day. He can't actually, not even, his second day, but he can't even last 2 shifts.
No, and I like how he goes, no, I nearly had a sale today. And he's like, that's great, Larry. That's good. Good for you. Like, he just doesn't care. He doesn't want a bar. He's just like, get out.
Yeah, get out. Exactly. What an oddball fantasy, and what a weird plot development, you know, him being a salesman.
Yeah.
How odd. Even for Curb, you know, it's such early days, you know, it's really weird. It's almost like a season 8 or 9 Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, Jerry becoming a car salesman just to break up his comedy career or something.
Yeah, really weird. Larry arrives home early and he tells Cheryl that he got fired. A maintenance worker is in the house trying to find where the house sound's coming from, and Larry tells him that the sound arrives after 10 p.m. and he asks if the worker can stay over and wait for the sound. And Cheryl's like, you can't expect someone like that to stay at 10 p.m. And even the worker's like,
no, I can do it. I've just got to get a sitter.
Got to get a sitter for, I presume, his child or children. And Larry's like, yeah, this is fine, see? And Cheryl's a bit reluctant, like, oh, okay, if you want.
I love how, you know, they're in bed talking, and then the worker, like, out of scene, like, castigates them for talking too loud. He's like, shut up.
Oh, like, yeah, that's sorry. In the final scene. Yeah, that's it. And that actually segues into the final scene of this episode. So Larry and Cheryl are in bed talking, and Larry says that he'll call Jason to work on that TV idea. And just as another reference to season 1, Cheryl informs him that 10:45 p.m. is 45 minutes after cutoff. And Larry says there's an hour dispensation for good news. The worker yells at him to be quiet off screen, like you mentioned, as he's trying to find where the house sound's coming from, as it rings out again.
Yeah, and then it ends. So a bit of an awkward, a bit of a blunt ending. Like, normally there's a bit of closure, but it's just sort of like, well, he got fired, and what was the sound? Maybe we'll find out in the next episode.
Who knows?
I don't know. A bit of a. It felt like it just needed one more scene, maybe.
Probably, or some kind of closure in that scene.
Yeah, I mean, there was closure with the job, and, you know, there was closure with what he's going to do for work, and it kind of sets up for the rest of the season where he's like, okay, well, I've had my period of being a slob. Now I'm going to get back into writing, and that, I don't know if that continues through the season. But just the house sound, which is to me the biggest part of the episode that needs closure, even though it's the least important part of the storyline.
That's it.
It just sort of ends.
That's it. Well, we forgot to preface that this is actually your first time you're watching Curb.
Yeah, no, I've seen bits and pieces over the years, and obviously I've seen all of season 1 now because we've done that, but pretty much every episode, I've never seen a full episode beyond season 1. So this is all new to me.
And I haven't seen season 2.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, why didn't I get into this sooner? It's so good.
It's going to have like the next renaissance, you know, like Seinfeld had the internet renaissance in the 2010s, and I think Curb will be the 2020s one. I think that'll be the one with the memes and stuff.
I think because Curb's still ongoing. I mean, it's always had a bit more of a cultish following than Seinfeld. It doesn't have as broad appeal, but I don't think it's ever like had a lull in viewership. It's always, to me, it's like the same people who watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's like, it's too crude to be mainstream accepted. I don't think it's ever had a lull to require a renaissance because it's still a current show.
I mean, it'll have like an internet renaissance of sorts, or an internet kind of revival, you know. Like, there'll be memes, and there'll be, you know, like your Facebook page Seinfeldisms, there'll be like Curbisms. That'll be your next one.
Curbisms.
Curbisms.
No.
No, not quite.
Larryisms.
Larryisms, yes. Well, speaking of Larryisms, how many Larrys out of 5 do you give this episode? Because each episode we rank them out of 5 Larrys. So I give this one 3.5. What about you?
Okay, I give this one 4.
Oh,
strong
yeah.
start to the season.
Nice start.
Yeah, I mean, it's as good as, good episodes from season 1. Yeah, and a good strong start. So, and, obviously they've moved house. Larry's writing again, or work, he's back into work, and the tension between Larry and Richard is sort of like they've said, it's a typical establishing episode, and I think they've established a lot of good, good situations to get a lot of good storylines out of going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the rest of season 2, and I'm looking forward to doing the rest of the seasons of Curbcast.
Indeed.
My name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
Thank you so much for listening. You can get in touch with us. You can send us an email, bidwellbarspodcast@gmail.com. You can also listen to our other podcasts, But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character. It's about Seinfeld and its wonderful secondary characters. You can find us on all the socials, and if you want to drop us a line, say good day, we'd love to hear from you.
Indeed. And during the current situation around the world, hope you are doing okay. Remember to practice social distancing, wash your hands, and be sensible. And hopefully we'll be on the tail end of it soon, and we'll all just be able to live life a little less stressed. Absolutely. And enjoy a bit more Seinfeld and enjoy a bit more Curb.
And we can all pretend to be car salesmen at our local Toyota dealerships.
That's right. There'll be a lot of people will be selling their cars because they'll be out of a job, so there'll be more of a demand for car salesmen. So we can all go out there and make people feel uncomfortable and walk off.
Why not? We will see you next week for Curbcast and for Bitwellbast. You take care.
Catch ya.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media at Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.